Farmers today are facing rising costs, volatile markets, and extreme weather. The A Better Way to Farm podcast digs into strategies to help you take control of farm inputs and maximize profit so your farm can thrive for generations. Remember to take advantage of our free resources at abetterwaytofarm.com. Now, from America's Heartland, here's your host.
Welcome, everybody, to the A Better Way to Farm. We are so glad that you've joined us today. And my name is Andrew. I'm on the A Better Way to Farm team. I have the pleasure of interviewing a lot of different people on the podcast. But I tell you what, today we've got a great individual lined up. And he has a wealth of knowledge. And he's a great farmer. And most of all, he's just a great guy. And so I look forward to getting to know my very good friend, Mr. Brent, from the great state of Illinois. Brent, how are you today?
I'm excellent.
Good. So, Brent, we are honored to have you on, honored to have you a part of the team here. Tell us a little bit about your farming operation. What crops do you raise? What do you guys do?
Well, we've got a diverse amount of crops and livestock that we're raising on our farm. Cow herd is Angus, and my daughter raises Lincoln sheep. We also have corn, soybeans, and we have a custom hay business that we raise alfalfa to sell to other people.
Excellent. Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your journey in farming. How were you farming before you met us? What caused you to reach out? What are you doing now? Just tell us the whole story.
I've been farming for 30 years at the farm we're on. I grew up in farming. Things have seen a lot of changes over the years. We're kind of a conventional farm. It's a lot of tillage, but we were experimenting with different liquid fertilizers and replacing some nutrients. And we have since implemented more of a full liquid program to where we're replacing foliar feeding our nutrients and those aspects. And we don't do as much tillage anymore. We're doing just light tillage before planting, some vertical tillage in the fall.
Very good. Awesome. And then, so tell us a little bit about sort of what would you identify as something that was holding you back, limiting you? You know, a lot of farmers have the same kind of problems. So what were some problems you were facing and how did you address them?
Our main problems have been trying to figure out how to cost effectively have nutrients available that would give us the best returns. Some of the products we were using weren't as available to us, and so we were looking for products that were more easily absorbed into the crop, and we could see results with yield that way.
Okay. And so you're farming in eastern Illinois, correct?
It's almost central Illinois. We're kind of on the dividing line of Illinois.
There you go. So you're farming in central Illinois, and there's a few things there. I know that you guys, one of the misconceptions is that all Illinois dirt is the best dirt in the world. But you've got some good dirt. You've got some fields that are challenging. Obviously, you raise different kinds of crops. Tell us a little bit about what it means for you working with us and how we can custom tailor things on a field-by-field basis. What does that mean for you, and how do you make that happen? What's the farming approach, so to speak?
As Andrew said, we have a variety of different fields. We farm in 3 different counties where we're at, and some of the fields are the nice flat black dirt, but as we get along the river, we notice more of the rolling clay ground timber soils, which are more challenging to raise stuff on. A lot of those end up being our pasture and hay ground. We can raise good corn in a rotation once in a while, but usually that stays in some type of a forage crop. We've been able to take those acres that are more challenging. They all have lower CECs. They don't hold as many nutrients. And we've been able to spoon feed in smaller quantities our nutrients throughout the growing season, which actually provides more nutrients to the plant.
Awesome. And so you're able to put together a custom tailored approach for each field, not just in what you apply, but how and when you apply it as well. Some fields you'll spoon feed more than others because they can't hold on to those nutrients. That's a lighter soil. And some fields you have a little more leeway there. And in both cases, you can tailor the blend that you're using. And so that's awesome. And then tell us a little bit about the testing side of things. Are you soil testing? Are you using that tissue testing? What does that analysis and that data mean for you?
We are soil testing and tissue testing. We are able to see each grid of our field and see what their nutrients are. And we've also found that there's several micronutrients that we were unaware of being lower that we have been addressing. And by applying those micronutrients throughout the different forms of application, whether it be in furrow, beside a row, foliar feed over the top, we've been able to level those nutrients up and make a more uniform nutrient compass that the whole crop can, provide a better yield with.
That is excellent explanation of what we are trying to achieve. And so I assume in doing that, you're managing more than just 2 or 3 different nutrients. Can you give us an idea for our listeners that maybe aren't used to dealing with micronutrients? They've never done that before. What different micros do you see deficiency? And then what's the best way to address each of those?
So we'd been using, besides our NPK, we've been using some sulfur, but we've increased the amount of sulfur. We found that there's more sulfur needed in the environment because it's not readily available as it used to be. They've cleaned up our emissions and our smokestacks and stuff from the coal factories. And so we're not getting our free sulfur anymore. So we've addressed that. We've also looked at one that I've been looking at for several years was zinc. We've been able to increase the zinc and actually make it more available to the plant. But we've found that the ones that you don't really think about, the boron, the copper, manganese, those nutrients are ones that we found to be at lower levels than what we expected. I mean, we're on some pretty high fertility farms in the good dirt, and we're seeing yields that are approaching 300. And, even with those nutrients limiting, if we can fine tune them, we could see more.
Wow. Excellent. So you are really dialing some things in, and you're seeing that in your situation on your really good dirt, you're getting some really, really high yields. And so when we get into that really high yield environment, sometimes a little thing like that can move the needle. If you're not addressing that boron or that copper, that manganese, that yield limiting factor, a little investment can unlock a lot of money for you. Yield is built on percentages. When you have a 300 bushel yield crop potential versus a 200, anything you do is going to build that in the percentage of what your potential is there. And so you're in a situation there where when you do some tweaking, it can really, really impact your return on investment. So that is awesome. Moving on just a little bit, you mentioned you grow alfalfa. Talk to us about what the alfalfa program looks like. Are you foliar feeding? Are you doing micronutrients? Are you testing? Just give us a rundown of what you're doing and what kind of results you see.
Yes, we have been doing the same soil test we do on the other fields. We do some tissue testing along with it. We're finding out what the soil has, what it's providing to the plant. We're have implemented a foliar feeding program for the alfalfa, and we try to time that right after we get it cut and baled. So within about a 5-day window from the time you cut it to after it starts to regrow, you want to have that foliar feed on the field. We try to supply the micronutrients that are missing. So if I have a deficiency that shows that I'm 2 pints low on the boron, for example, we will split that into the 4 applications of every cutting, or 5, to try and supply some over the whole crop and also keep it growing into the later season.
Excellent. And so do you believe that you've seen an increase in yield or feed value, plant health? What are you observing in your alfalfa crop by doing this program?
We are seeing increases in all of those. The biggest thing that we found is the plant will grow back quicker. It'll be darker green. We use a biostimulant in it that actually helps with the size of the leaves, making them larger. And when you're producing alfalfa hay, your leaf is where your higher protein's coming from. So the more leaves and the less stem, the better amount of protein you'll get into your alfalfa. And it's been able to increase it in both ways.
Are you able to shorten your cutting intervals? Are you seeing that yet?
Yes, we're almost 28 days or less. Right now, we're kind of dependent on weather. We've had some major rainstorms over the last few weeks, and it's kind of delayed a little bit of our next crop of hay, but it's really full and leafy and ready to go. So
Excellent. I just admire y'all's operation, and I love what you've got going on there, and the fact that you're managing on such a high level. And one of the things I know to manage on a high level is it doesn't just take, buying the right stuff and putting it on at the right time, but you really have to understand what is going on in the soil, what is going on in the plant, what are the different nutrients that you're doing. You mentioned a biostimulant. So obviously there's learning and there's science behind this. What are some things since joining the team that you've seen as far as resources we have when it comes to learning, education? To a lot of the people that are listening, a lot of what we covered sounds intimidating. I don't know how to manage all this. What's your advice to them as far as how to get started and how to actually learn the system?
the best thing, easiest way to learn it is to try a product and use it. The other way is get to some event, whether it be a field day or a training session. We have an excellent group of people to work with as far as asking questions and trying to figure out what your farm needs and how the different things that we're working with will work on your farm.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing all of that. I know this was kind of a 30,000 foot view of some of the changes that you've made, some of the results that you're seeing and what you're doing on your farm. But I know that for a lot of people, this is something that's very, very helpful for them. Again, a lot of what Brent is talking about here, folks, is sort of as you listen to the podcast and you listen to all of the other interviews and all of the webinars and all of the content we put out, we may not have gotten too scientific today, but I'd encourage you, look up the 12 Nutrients of Christmas program that we do every December. Reach out to the team and get a hold of our most recent foliar feeding webinar, where we dive really, really deep into the mechanisms that it takes and the process and the systems that it takes to make all of this work. We're living in a day and age where, you can't wish yourself into prosperity, but you have to manage every single thing well. And Brent is a great example of someone that's doing that. Brent, I love the knowledge you bring. I love your willingness to try new things. And I love that you always brag on your family business, family farm. What's your last piece of advice? And I'm just going to make this really general, not farming related, not sort of science stuff, but for the farmer out there that is just looking for some hope. Things seem dim. Maybe they're struggling in their crop. I know a lot of folks in Illinois just got hammered with some tornadoes and some weather events, and maybe things are looking dim. What's your advice to them? What's your advice to the farmer out there that's wondering if he can pass it on to the next generation?
Get involved with one of us on the team, and we'll be glad to share some information about the stuff that we're using, ways to help you with those cost decreases, things that can make those plants grow better in adverse conditions. We have a lot of things that we use that they're practical and they work. And I've seen a lot of it this year with the cold weather. It seems like a lot of the soybeans in our area have been slow to grow. The ones we've foliar fed alongside of those are just outstanding in comparison. I mean, the stuff works if you learn how to use it. So I'd really recommend you visiting with one of us. We'd be glad to share all this with you.
Excellent. No secrets here. Brent, thank you for your time. And I want to remind our listeners, he mentioned reach out to us. He mentioned a training session. We have one of our 2-day Fundamentals of Agronomy training coming up in July that you would be very, very glad that you came to. Next week, we have our very first field day. And just to give you all an idea of the scope of what we cover, we got field days all the way down in Mississippi starting next week. We got field days in Pennsylvania. We got field days all the way in Iowa and Minnesota. And Brent, also, our good friend Brent here is hosting a field day in Illinois. We've got over 25 field days on the schedule, so it'd be a great opportunity for you to get to one. We look forward to seeing you one there, and hopefully we can help you have a better day when you come. Thank you for joining us today, and we'll catch you next time.